Hey folks, this is Colin here from Sparing Outdoors, and this is our next upload in the wee series to help novices and beginners get into the world of outdoors safely and hopefully correctly. And this little episode is about navigation and the two main ways, the two most popular ways of navigation these days, which happens to be the traditional map and compass, or the more popular one that seems to be these days is a GPS system or a GPS app that you can download onto your device like your phone, things like that. So we're going to talk about the pros and cons of these two ways of navigation and how they actually work. And we'll go into the pros and cons, the main pros and cons. We're not going into all the pros and cons, but we'll go into the main pros and cons that maybe people would maybe not think about. Right, just before we start this little talk on the two main ways of navigating these days, which is obviously the traditional map and compass and the GPS system. If you're watching this clip for the first time, why don't you go back and see my first episode, which is I'll leave a link in the description, so you can see why I'm actually doing these episodes. And it's all about helping beginners and novices in the world of outdoors. So go check that episode out before you watch this one, and it'll make a lot more sense to you. Right, just before I start talking about these two forms of navigation, I just want to let you know I'm not here to patronize anybody that uses the GPS systems or the navigation apps on the phone. That's not my intention. I'm not here to annoy people that use these as their main methods, because that's not my intention. I'm here to try and give advice and get people thinking about the ways that they use their navigation tools. And I suppose I've got a good idea on how to use both. Again, I 95% of the time will use, actually more than 95% of the time will use a traditional map and compass. This is quite an old one. I got one stage to see what the GPS system was all about, and it's quite a simple one. I got this, I don't know how many years ago. Wife got it, could be 10 years ago, I'm not too sure. And I could probably count, either in one hand, possibly both hands, how many times I've actually used this little device. So not very often, and I actually have downloaded another little app on my phone just to check them out in comparison to the map and compass, which I've used a few times. And I actually found it was very accurate and very good and quite fun to use, in all fairness. So I've got a good idea on how I can compare both the types of navigation against each other. So let's go ahead. Right, let's talk about the main pros and cons of these navigational tools. Right, the GPS systems and the apps for your phones, once you tinker about with them and learn how to use them, it doesn't take that way long how to figure out how to use them. They're very accurate and very easy to use, so there's very little skill involved in how to use them. They're very good because you can download maps of whatever area you're at and use them then. You can also download, people have already done plotted routes and things like that, and you can actually download their routes and go and walk on their routes and things. So they're very easy to use, and there's not much skill once you get your head around them and how to use them. So you would really rely on that way. So they're very handy in terms of that way. While the traditional map and compass, there's a lot more skill involved to it. There's a lot more learning and things to be taught using a traditional map and compass. So there's a wee bit more skill in that and a wee bit more work using these guys. So that's obviously a downfall of the map and compass. In comparison, this is very compact because you don't really need a map or a compass. Well, you're taking the compass and a map, a wee bit bulky. It's not much, it's really light anyway. So maybe that could be a downfall for these guys, which maybe is. That could be a pro for this. The other thing about the device that's I suppose a downfall in terms of people forget about is these devices can drop in and out of signal. So technically, if you drop in and out of signal, you're losing your navigation. You can get lost. Which is, these guys, again, they don't rely on signal. They rely on your own skill set to take you through the mountain or wherever you're at. The other thing about these, a lot of these can have a bit of problem on weather. Some of them are waterproof, some aren't. Your phones, if you're using a navigation app on your phone's not waterproof. If the water ruins these devices, again, you've lost your mode of navigation. You're lost again. While water doesn't affect these guys, you can get waterproof mapping like this. And the compass doesn't work on all weathers. Again, you can, I suppose, sticky back plastic a certain area of a map to make it waterproof if you want it. So again, weather doesn't affect these guys. Another thing about these guys is, that is a big downfall, is in cold weather, batteries use the energy a lot quicker. There's more technical term. I'm not a very tech freak, so I can't really go into this as well as thing. But all I know is cold weather saps the battery a lot quicker. It uses its energy a lot quicker. In cold weather, again, the map and compass, you don't need to worry about that. The other thing, again, if you just drop it, they're a wee bit more fragile than that. You can't break a compass, there's no thing, but you drop onto the grass or hit a rock and that, they're generally okay. These things you can damage, and same as your phone, you can damage your phone. Again, you break it, you've lost your navigation, you're lost again. So there's lots of problems with the technology brings. Again, technology can be brilliant. You can use it to your advantage because they are very accurate. They take you to where you want to go, and there's very less hassle, and they're very good that way. The other thing about them, technology can just be faulty. It can be working great 1 minute and then just decide, you know what, I'm done. Just give up and not work for you and freeze and things like that. And that's a problem with technology. Again, the traditional map and compass, that won't happen. The other thing, again, these here, you don't really have a backup. So if you're relying on devices all the time, you're hardly going to have another one of these in your backpack if this one breaks, because they're probably £200 or £300 now. I don't know how much they are. They're probably really expensive now, and you're probably not going to have. Well, a map and compass, generally, if you're with a party of group, everybody got a compass, and I always carry a small one in my rucksack anyway as a backup, just in case I lose this one or break it. So it's a lot less expensive, 20-25 quid a piece. So it's a lot cheaper in terms of your pocket ways. That a way of navigating. As I say, the good thing about these things here, that they are very, very handy. So again, you can just plot your thing, you follow your arrow, it takes you where you want to be. But there is a downside of that particular navigation. So you're sitting following your thing is telling you to take over there, enjoying the countryside. This is brilliant. You're walking around and enjoying it. This guy here makes you far more aware of your surroundings, because you're constantly. A guy once told me, this is a different story, but I'll come back to what I'm about to say. A guy once told me in one of the mountain leader courses that I did that navigating a map and compass is 35% map work. So 35% of the time you're reading your map. 15% of the time you need your compass. You only need your compass in poor visibility and featureless landscape, and the other 50% is complete confidence in your ability to use these, and that is very, very true. But the thing about this, because you are constantly watching your map and using your compass when you need it in the bad visibility, and that you're far more aware. You're far more aware of your surroundings. So you're sitting thinking, oh, there's whatever river, there's that summit there, and I'm going over here. So you're very clued into where you're at, and very rarely will you get lost. Yes, you might go off the track a wee bit, but you know the vicinity of where you're at most of the time. You have to be really, really bad if you get lost on one of these. And if you did get really bad and got somehow really badly lost and weren't really sure where you're at, you can do a thing called resection, but it's a wee bit more technical. We'll not worry about that. But one of these things, if you're dandering along, you're 7 or 8 hours into your walk and then suddenly it dies, you mightn't have been paying attention to what's around you, where you're at, and suddenly, once you get lost, this is where it makes this is where novices and beginners and people who think they're hill walkers but really aren't hill walkers get into real serious bother, where a wee thing like getting lost becomes a major problem. Well, an experienced hill walker that maybe got a wee bit off the track, got lost, whatever, but they can, as I says, do things like resection if they really had to, which is very rare because you really don't need it unless you're completely banjaxed. You can just either backtrack, or you have a fair idea where you're at. You can start looking at your map. Well, I was there 20 minutes ago, so I must be whatever, and then you start to look at your features. You're far more clued into where you're at, so you're not going to get lost that badly, and you can deal with it. Again, as the guys that carry these devices and solely use these devices generally tend to be, not saying everybody, but I would say more than 60 or 70% of the guys that have downloaded apps and use these as their full form of navigation probably can't use map skills. And that tells me if they haven't took the time and using map skills and that they haven't really researched. They're not really fully proper hill walkers, outdoor men. I don't want to insult anybody here because that's not what I'm saying. And what I mean by that, then, if they took a shortcut by using these devices, they probably don't have the gear and stuff that they need for being on the mountain if things got horribly wrong. So by just getting lost, things can escalate. So if you get lost, you can get disorientated. You might get cold, you might get caught out, you mightn't have a survival bag, you mightn't have a kissy or a bothy, you mightn't have a way of making a hot meal or a hot drink, and just things like that, from being a little problem as being lost, become a huge problem. And then if you do get into bother and you can't get anybody, you don't know where you're at, you somebody can signal on your phone, you don't know, you can't tell mountain rescue or where you're at. Well, if you got injured or whatever in the mountain, you have a fair idea yet, you can ring them if you got signal and say, you know what, I'm at whatever junction, come and get me, I can't get off the mountain. So you're far more prepared. Generally, the people are far more prepared with these because you know where you're at. And you always find, again, I'm not trying to annoy anybody, but you always generally find people who have took the time to learn these, or sort of guys, or maybe traditional hill walkers, have been in mountain leader courses and things like that, know what they're doing. They're far more prepared for the outdoors. But we're going to talk more about that going into the gear thing. So that's a good thing about these things. Again, they're light, compact, weatherproof. They're far more reliable. People say, how are they far more reliable when this is a very accurate navigation? This is very accurate navigation, yes, but far more problems can happen with these devices than these devices, so that means they're far more reliable. If your map reading skills and your compass work and your confidence is good using these, it's far more reliable than this. Now, that being said, I love map and compass. I am a complete map geek. I love maps. I love looking at maps. I could look at a map all day. It's like some people love reading novels and books. I love maps. I love reading maps. I love looking at maps. I love looking to find places I've never been. And I love opening out maps so you can see the whole area that you're starting in. While the GPS system, you don't really have it. You have to zoom in and out and things like that. And it's too tricky and annoying for me to do that. The other thing about these systems, a lot of them, it says it gives you wee arrows and it says you're not aware of your surroundings. So if you could be using this in thick fog, and that's taking you wee arrow and you're just walking in that bear in that lane on these devices all the time, and because you're not really looking at your map and your surroundings, it could lead you into difficulties in terms of it could take you into a gully, even over a cliff, whatever, we're too close to a cliff or whatever. You mightn't pick up on some dangers around you, while the compass and map, you're watching it constantly. You're as I said, you're just far more aware of your surroundings, so it's a wee bit safer that way. Now, so that's the main differences between these two devices that I can see. These are extremely accurate and very easy to use, brilliant for novices, but can be dangerous as well. The map and compass, far more skill level required, but far more reliable, and just a brilliant bit of kit. And there's nothing better, in my opinion, is, say if you're in a featureless landscape or somewhere that's very, I suppose, very dark or foggy or whatever, there's nothing more exciting than when you're taking what I would call a glory lake, where you're taking your bearing and you're going through completely, you can't see where you're going, and you take yourself pinpoint accurate out 3 or 4 kilometre across the mountain and take you out to the bridge or the stile or wherever you want to be. It's quite satisfying that you've had that skill to get through that area. Well, you don't have that with that. It does all the work for you. So it's nice having the challenge to get through and pinpointing where you want to go, and difficult navigational and places where it's difficult to navigate or poor visibility. It's quite exciting, and it's just nice reading your map and just plottering along and you're control your own destiny. Well, you're relying on this for everything if you're really relying on that. Now, the good thing about these things is if you do rely on these, I would sort of plead with you to start to learn map and compass, or go out with somebody who can learn map and compass. I forgot to mention another thing about the compass is a drawback. Keep it away from metal and magnetic fields, things like that, and rocks. It can throw it off a bit, but that's one. I'll put the pros and cons up both at the end, but I thought I'd mention that. But if you are a complete novice or beginner, I do recommend you start to learn map and compass, because you can use them in conjunction with each other. you could use this as your main mode of navigation and just glance at this all the time as your backup. So they can be worked with each other, and just have that there and glance at your map every now and then and use them in conjunction with each other, and you should be perfectly safe if you can navigate with this, and you can have the complete handiness of using this without having to navigate with this. So you could work them with in conjunction with each other. I'm very on for that. That's a brilliant idea. So, and a lot of people do that. So you do see a lot of people that do use these, and they do have these. Just because they're using these doesn't mean they can't use this. There could be a person that likes using these and has that as their backup, but can use this just as well as this. So don't judge people when they're out when they're using these. So that's what I'm saying. So they can work in conjunction with each other, and it's a good idea for them to work in conjunction with each other. I would recommend not solely using this on its own, to have a backup or have the skill to use the traditional map and compass, because you will be far much safer. Again, the next episodes in that we will talk about the gear that you should be bringing and how to use it. There's nothing more annoying than somebody going out onto the mountain, and I see this all the time. You see it coming into my shop. They'll come in, right, I've downloaded an app, I'm a hill walker now, all I need is my jacket and coat. They'll come in, they'll buy all the correct gear that they needed to buy. They've got the device, they've got the gear, they've got the device, but they're not hill walking. They don't know how to use the gear they've got, and that's a big problem. There's no point having the gear if you don't know how to use it. And that's the difference again in amateur walkers and more experienced walkers, mountain leaders and things. They know when small problems arise, they can deal with it. While the amateur walker not have a small problem arises, it can lead to bigger problems and put their own safety at risk, and actually put safety of others at risk as well. So we'll talk more about that as we go into it. But thanks for watching, guys. I'll put up the pros and cons here now. A wee list, a bullet point list, which is the more simple pros and cons of both. But I just wanted to explain that these are fantastic, but they can also be dangerous when they go wrong. And these are fantastic because they're really reliable, but that much harder to use. But once you start using them, it's very hard to use one of these because these are very exciting, but you can use both. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope I didn't bore you too much. Again, this is trying to give good, solid advice to people who are getting out into the world of the outdoors and wanting to learn navigation. Please learn these. Continue to use these if you like them, but please learn these. That's it, guys. Hope I didn't bore you. It's 15 minutes long, probably near 20 minutes time this is finished, but it is just advice, and I'm just trying to explain and give examples how navigation, how these devices can affect you when you're outdoors.